Disclaimer: this story is a dramatized fictional narrative created for entertainment purposes. All characters, places, and events are entirely fictional. Viewer discretion is advised. It all started with a weekend getaway that none of us saw turning into a survival nightmare. I was supposed to go on a simple winter trip with my best friend Josh and his mom, Claire. Josh and I had grown up together. We were more like brothers than friends. His mom? Well, Claire was the kind of person everyone admired. Calm, warm, always prepared, and full of life. She treated me like her own son. So when she invited me to join them on a quick escape to her late husband's old cabin up in the snowy mountains, I didn't hesitate. I'd always wanted to see the place Josh talked about, and I figured we'd have some fun snowboarding, eat junk food, and maybe even disconnect from the world for a bit. But life had other plans. The weather app showed light snowfall that weekend, nothing alarming. We drove up early Saturday morning in Claire's SUV. The ride was filled with laughter, old stories, and a cozy playlist she put together. I noticed how different Claire seemed in the mountains. More relaxed, nostalgic maybe. Josh had to leave on Sunday evening for college interviews. So the plan was for him to head back a day early while I stayed one extra night with Claire, helping her close the place up for winter. It seemed harmless, easy, routine. By Sunday evening, the snow had started falling heavier than predicted. The forecast shifted drastically, now warning of an unexpected blizzard sweeping through the region. Josh was barely able to make it back down before the roads got bad. Claire and I stayed behind, thinking we'd wait it out and leave first thing in the morning. But that morning never came the way we hoped. What was supposed to be a peaceful final night turned into something else entirely. The storm picked up with a terrifying intensity. The wind howled like it was alive. Thick layers of snow buried the entire cabin in white, and by sunrise we were completely snowed in. No cell service. No internet. No way down the mountain. And worst of all, no one expected us to be stuck. Inside the wooden walls of that old cabin, the mood shifted quickly. Claire tried to stay calm. She made coffee, turned up the fireplace, and kept busy. But I could tell behind her composed face she was just as unsure as I was. The silence outside was deafening. Everything felt frozen, like time itself had stopped. We rationed food. We double-checked emergency supplies. She had flares, batteries, even a shortwave radio, but none of it worked the way we needed. That radio picked up nothing but static. We kept trying anyway, taking shifts at the window just in case a helicopter or ranger passed by. By day 2, we were living in layers. Thick socks, doubled-up hoodies, thermal blankets wrapped around us like armor against the cold. The temperature inside the cabin had dropped. We had firewood, but it was limited. Claire kept track of everything like a soldier, carefully burning just enough to stay warm, but never too much. At night, the cold crept in hardest. We slept close to the fire, just a few feet apart. The flickering orange light cast strange shadows on the walls, and the storm outside never seemed to rest. Every creak of the cabin made my heart jump. On the third night, the wind knocked something over outside. A tree branch, maybe. Claire and I rushed to the door, only to realize it had frozen shut. She looked at me then, not with fear, but with something more intense. A silent acknowledgement that this wasn't just an inconvenience anymore. We have to stay inside. It's too dangerous, she said, her voice low and serious. We can't risk getting stuck out there. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a snowstorm. It was a trap. The mountain, beautiful and peaceful just days ago, had turned into a silent beast holding us hostage. And no one even knew we were still here. We tried everything to keep morale up. Told stories. Played cards. She even showed me an old photo album filled with pictures of Josh when he was a kid, summers spent in that very cabin. It was a weird comfort, those images of a warmer time. But with each passing day, the tension built. The supplies were running low. The snow wasn't melting, and the isolation began to play tricks on our minds. I noticed little things. The way Claire would pause and stare out the frosted window for minutes, eyes unfocused. Or how she'd suddenly stop mid-sentence, listening, as if she heard something that I couldn't. And then there was the moment, late one night, when I woke up to the sound of her whispering near the fireplace. She didn't know I was awake. Her voice was soft, almost trembling. "We'll get out of here," she murmured. "He'll be okay. He has to be." I wasn't sure if she meant Josh, or if she was talking to her late husband, or if, somehow, she was just trying to convince herself. I didn't ask. There are some things you don't question when you're trapped together in a snow-covered world where the sun barely rises and the cold makes even time feel frozen. But what happened the next morning changed everything. And that's when I realized we weren't just waiting for rescue anymore. We were going to have to survive. Together. Morning came slowly, hidden behind thick, gray clouds. The world outside looked the same, white, endless, silent. But inside, something felt different. I could sense it the moment I opened my eyes. Claire was already up, pacing by the window with a mug of coffee in her hands. She didn't say anything at first, just kept staring into the snow like she was searching for something, or someone. I sat up, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. The cabin was freezing. The fire had burned low, just glowing embers left. I wrapped myself in the blanket and moved closer to the hearth, adding a couple small logs from our shrinking pile. Claire finally turned to me, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I saw movement," she said. I blinked. "What kind of movement?" She didn't answer right away, just walked back to the window and pressed her hand gently against the fogged-up glass. "I don't know, maybe nothing. Maybe I'm just tired." It wasn't like her to imagine things. Claire was the kind of woman who stayed calm under pressure, organized, thoughtful. She had raised Josh on her own after his dad passed away in a hiking accident near these same mountains. Maybe that was part of the reason she brought us here, to feel close to him again. But now, being stuck in the same isolated place, with the storm growing more brutal by the day, it was starting to feel like this mountain didn't want to let anyone go. We went about the morning as best we could. Made oatmeal with the last of the instant packets. Checked the batteries on the flashlight. No signal still. Nothing but snow piling against the front door, inch by inch. The wind had eased just slightly, but visibility was still terrible. We couldn't even see the tree line anymore. At one point, Claire sat down with the emergency journal, the same one her husband had kept during his solo trips up here. She flipped through the pages slowly, her fingers tracing the faded handwriting like it was a memory she couldn't let go of. I didn't want to intrude, but I couldn't help asking. "Do you think he ever got stuck like this?" She didn't look up. "Once. The last time he came up here before the accident. He wrote about hearing things in the woods, said it felt like something was watching him." I frowned. "Like animals?" Claire finally looked at me. "I'm not sure. He never said clearly. Just strange noises. Shadows that didn't make sense. I used to think maybe he was just tired. Or lonely." Her voice drifted off, and I could feel a strange chill, one that had nothing to do with the cold. Later that afternoon, I tried to clear some snow from the back door, thinking maybe we could make a path to the shed behind the cabin. Claire helped me bundle up. We had to be fast or we'd risk frostbite. We tied ropes around our waists, secured one end inside, and opened the door slowly. The wind hit hard, almost knocking me back. I forced my way into the snow, using a shovel to break through the packed layers. Claire stood at the door, holding the rope, calling out when I drifted too far from her sight. I was maybe 10 feet from the cabin when I saw it, deep tracks in the snow. Not boot prints. Not animal either. Long dragged. Like something had been pulled or slid across the snow. I shouted to Claire, pointing, but the wind swallowed my voice. She waved frantically, motioning for me to come back. I hesitated, glanced at the strange marks again, then hurried toward her. Back inside, my skin was red and raw, and Claire immediately threw a blanket over my shoulders. "You can't stay out there too long," she scolded gently. "It's not just the cold. It does something to your mind." I nodded, still thinking about those tracks. "Claire," I said quietly, "there's something out there." She didn't respond right away. Just stared into the fire like it might give her answers. "I know," she finally whispered. The rest of the day passed slowly. Every sound made us flinch. The wind knocking on the walls. The crack of the old wooden beams above. I couldn't stop thinking about the tracks I'd seen. What could make those shapes? What was out there in the snow? That night, we barely slept. Claire set up a makeshift alarm system near the back door, pots and pans tied with string. If anything tried to come inside, we'd hear it. I tried to read an old book left behind on the shelf, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept drifting back to the story in Claire's husband's journal. The things he heard. The feelings he had before he died. I wondered if it was the same thing we were feeling now. Sometime after midnight, I woke to a faint sound, metal clinking. The pans. I sat up, heart pounding. Claire was already awake, flashlight in hand. She looked at me with wide eyes. We listened. 1 second. 2. Then again, clink. Clink. She motioned for me to stay behind as she crept toward the back door. I followed anyway. We crouched near the door, barely breathing. The sound stopped. Total silence again. Then scratch. Something dragging across the wood outside. Slow. Deliberate. Claire whispered, "It's too dangerous. Stay." But my curiosity got the best of me. I leaned in, pressing my ear against the door. What I heard was breathing. Heavy. Ragged. Close. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, something knocked. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. And then everything went still. Claire and I sat frozen, our backs pressed against the cold cabin wall. Neither of us spoke. The sound of those 3 knocks still echoed in my chest like something ancient had just announced itself. I glanced at her, expecting answers, but her face was pale, jaw tight, eyes locked on the door like it might open on its own. No more noises came. No voice. No footsteps. Just the low whistle of wind squeezing through the cracks in the wood. Minutes passed, maybe more. We waited. Listened. Claire finally reached for the flashlight again, holding it like a weapon. Her fingers trembled, but her voice was steady. "We don't open that door." I nodded, my throat dry. I didn't ask why, because deep down I already knew. Whatever was out there wasn't looking for help. It was waiting. Watching. Maybe it had been since the storm began. That night we stayed huddled in the front room, blankets wrapped around us, the fire blazing as hot as we could risk. Neither of us slept. In the silence, I started thinking about everything that had led up to this moment. Josh's dad. The old journal. The stories about noises in the woods. What if the mountain wasn't just dangerous because of the cold and snow? What if people had been disappearing up here for longer than anyone knew? The next morning, we tried to keep ourselves busy. Claire made tea with melted snow and we checked the windows for signs of movement. Nothing. But the tracks I'd seen the day before were gone, buried under fresh snow. Like whatever had made them wanted to erase its trail. I found the journal again while Claire went to gather more wood from the stack inside the shed. I flipped back through the pages, searching for anything we might have missed. And that's when I saw it, an entry dated 2 days before her husband's last trip. His handwriting had changed in that one. Sharper. Uneven. Something follows me after dark. I hear it even when I'm inside. I thought it was the wind, but it's not. It mimics my steps. It waits outside when I light the fire. I don't think it's an animal. I think it's learning me. I stared at the words, my hands turning cold. Claire returned just as I was about to call her over. She noticed the journal and sighed. "You found the last entry. Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, not accusing, just scared. I didn't want to believe it. I thought maybe he was tired, losing touch. Grief can twist your memory, especially when you're alone in a place like this. I looked at her. "But you heard it too. Last night." Claire nodded slowly. "Yeah, I did." The tension between us tightened, unspoken but heavy. There was something more she wasn't telling me. I could feel it. I didn't push yet, but I knew I would have to soon. Later that day, we heard the sound again. Not knocking this time. Whispers. Just outside the front door. So faint I couldn't make out the words. I held my breath and leaned closer, listening. It was my name. Whispered slow, as if testing how it sounded. "Eli." I jumped back, heart hammering in my chest. Claire rushed over, but when she leaned in, the voice was gone. Nothing. Just wind. That night, I found myself questioning everything. What if being snowed in wasn't an accident? What if the storm had trapped us here on purpose? The thought sounded crazy, but the feeling wouldn't leave. Claire started acting more on edge too. She double-checked the locks. Kept the fireplace lit all night. She even started muttering things under her breath when she thought I wasn't listening. Names, places, old memories. And then something strange happened. I found a second journal tucked behind the bookshelf, this one with no name. Inside were drawings. Dozens of them. Rough, black pencil sketches of the cabin. The woods. A figure standing in the snow. No face. Always far away. Watching. One sketch stopped me cold. It was the cabin door and someone standing on the other side, hand raised to knock. The caption underneath read, "It only comes when someone is alone." I turned the page. Another drawing, two people huddled by the fire, safe. The next, one person alone again, and the shadow moving closer. I closed the journal slowly, suddenly aware of how quiet the cabin had become. Claire was no longer in the room. And I was alone. I stood in the center of the cabin, the old journal still in my hands, my ears straining for any sound. The fire crackled behind me, but everything else had gone silent. Too silent. My heart pounded as I called out softly, "Claire." No answer. I moved slowly toward the hallway, stepping carefully over the creaky floorboards. The air felt colder now, like the warmth from the fireplace couldn't reach past that room. The shadows in the hallway seemed deeper, heavier. I reached Claire's room and gently pushed the door open. Empty. The bed was untouched, and the window above it had frost on the inside, something that hadn't happened before. I turned back around, every instinct telling me to go back to the fire, to light every candle in the house, to not be alone. But I kept moving, searching. "Claire." I called again, louder this time. That's when I heard it, coming from the back of the cabin. A low thud, followed by the sound of something dragging. It wasn't her voice. It wasn't footsteps. It was something else. I grabbed the flashlight and crept toward the back door. The pots and pans tied up by the string were swinging slightly, and the door was cracked open, wide enough for something to slip through. I swallowed hard, every nerve in my body screaming not to go near it. But I stepped closer, hand out, slowly pulling the door shut. Then I heard my name again. "Eli." This time it wasn't outside. It was behind me. I spun around, light shaking in my hand. Nothing. No one. Just the empty hallway again, stretching out like a tunnel. But it felt like something was there, just out of reach, just past the edge of the light. I backed into the main room, shutting the door fully behind me, throwing the lock. The fire had nearly died out. I threw more wood onto it, sparks shooting up. That's when I saw her. Claire. She was standing at the edge of the room, near the basement door, pale, her eyes wide and filled with something I couldn't read, fear, maybe. Or something worse. "I went down there," she said quietly. "What?" I asked, breathless. "Down where?" She didn't blink. "The basement. It's not just storage. There's something down there. Something he never told me about." Then she looked at me, her voice barely a whisper. "And I think it's awake." For a second, I didn't know what to say. Claire's eyes were locked on the basement door like it might open on its own. The fire behind me cracked loudly, but she didn't even flinch. I took a step closer, heart racing. "What do you mean, awake?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled something out, a key. "Rusted, old?" She held it out to me with a shaking hand. "He always told me never to open the basement. Said it was unsafe, just old wiring and broken shelves. But the other night I heard something moving down there. I thought it was a raccoon or maybe snow shifting. But I went down." I took the key slowly, glancing between her and the door. "There's a room," she continued, "hidden behind a wall. I found it open." I swallowed. "What was inside?" She looked straight at me. "Photos. Dozens of them. Old ones. Some of me. Some of Josh. Some of people I don't even know. And drawings. The same kind you found in the journal. But more detailed. More recent." My blood turned cold. "But who?" "He's been here," she said, voice breaking. "After he died. Or someone has. Someone who knows everything about us." Before I could respond, the lights flickered once, then shut off completely. The fire dimmed too, like something had sucked the air out of the room. And from the basement we heard it, creaking steps. Slow. Coming up. Claire turned to me, her face pale. "We're not alone in this cabin." And then, the door handle moved. The door handle turned slowly, creaking under invisible weight. I stepped in front of Claire, heart hammering in my chest, gripping the rusted key like it could somehow protect us. The door didn't open. Not fully. Just a crack wide enough to reveal the outline of a figure. Tall. Still. Shadowed by darkness. Then, a voice. Calm. Familiar. "Claire." It was Josh's dad. But he was dead. Had been for years. Claire gasped, stepping back. No, no, you're not real. The figure didn't move, just stood there in silence, the air around him heavy, suffocating. I reached for the flashlight and aimed it at the doorway. The beam flickered, then landed on his face or what looked like his face. But something was wrong. His features were distorted, hollow, like a mask stretched over something that wasn't human. It remembers, Claire whispered. The mountain. It's become him. Before we could move, the door flew open with a gust of freezing wind. I grabbed Claire and pulled her back, slamming the door shut and locking it. We sprinted to the fireplace. She shoved the remaining pages of the journal into the flames, and the fire exploded with light. The cabin walls trembled. We could hear the thing screaming from below, no longer in any human voice. Then silence. Just as we thought it was over, the radio, silent for days, crackled to life. A voice spoke through the static. Rescue team en route. Hold position. Relief flooded my chest. But then Claire pointed at the window. Another set of footprints had appeared. Not coming toward the cabin, but walking away from it. And there was no one out there. The rescue team arrived just after sunrise. A red helicopter cut through the misty sky, its blades echoing across the frozen valley. When they found us, we were sitting in silence by the dying fire, still watching the trail of footprints in the snow. They didn't ask too many questions, just checked us for frostbite and shock, then helped us board. Claire clutched the journal's cover, now charred and barely legible, as if it still held answers. We never spoke about the thing in the basement again. Not to the team. Not to each other. What could we even say? That the mountain remembered? That something had taken the shape of a man long gone? That survival meant more than just staying warm? Back in town, news stations reported the blizzard and our miraculous survival. No one mentioned the missing hikers from earlier that winter. No one connected the stories. But Claire and I knew the truth. Something lives up there, something tied to memory, to grief, to people who don't let go. A few days later, Claire quietly sold the cabin. She never returned. Josh never asked what happened that weekend. I think deep down he knew not to. And me? I still dream about those 3 knocks. About the voice that whispered my name like it had always known me. The mountain let us go, but it hasn't forgotten. And sometimes, when the wind blows just right, I can still hear it breathing.